Parent, discovering that your teenage son is struggling with pornography can feel like a sudden, devastating punch to your gut. It's a moment that leaves you breathless. You might feel yourself frantically searching his room or meticulously monitoring his screen time, or maybe laying awake late at night wondering where things went wrong. And in this desperate search for answers, it is so easy to focus entirely on the technology, smartphones, high-speed internet, sheer unavoidable accessibility of it all. And we think, well, if we can just lock down the router, then I can save my son. But parents, today, we need to talk about the truth that lies beyond the screen. Neurobiological and psychological research shows us that pornography addiction is rarely just about availability. It is frequently an attempt to self-medicate a deeper, a quieter ache, internalized emotional distress. Welcome back to the Parent Guide. Today, we are connecting the dots between how young men process their emotions and their vulnerability to compulsive behaviors. We're going to look at the hard science of emotional suppression, examine two real-world trajectories, and introduce two premier evidence-based interventions that are saving teen boys from this cycle: Recovery Toolbox for Teens and Star Guide's Wilderness Therapy. So parents, if you feel hopeless, stick around. Recovery is entirely possible. Well, let's start with a reality check about what it means to grow up as a boy today. In our culture, teen boys are frequently bombarded with societal messages to man up, suppress vulnerability, and hide fear or sadness. And when boys lack the tools or the permission to vocalize what they are feeling, they don't stop feeling. They begin to internalize their emotions. So instead of expressing grief or loneliness or anxiety or inadequacy, they simply bottle it up. And this is exactly where the addiction trap is sprung. Psychological research consistently demonstrates a massive link between this kind of emotional internalization and addictive behaviors. According to a landmark study published in the Journal of Adolescence, teenagers who habitually internalize their distress, meaning that they experience symptoms of hidden anxiety and depression, are at a significantly higher risk for developing behavioral addictions, including compulsive internet and pornography use. So here's what is happening biologically. When a boy internalizes heavy emotions, he experiences a state of chronic psychological discomfort. And because he cannot articulate his pain, his brain desperately searches for a quick escape. And pornography, well, it provides an immediate, intense flood of dopamine, the brain's primary reward chemical. And for a teen boy drowning in unexpressed anxiety or loneliness, the screen acts as an artificial emotional regulator. It offers an instant numbing effect, a temporary distraction, and a false sense of control. And over time, his developing brain maps this dangerous shortcut. So when I feel emotional discomfort, this is how I escape it. To really understand how this plays out in real life, let's look at two completely different paths that a teenage boy can take when he's up against this. We call it a tale of two trajectories. So first, let's look at the internalizing teen. This is the boy who views difficult emotions like fear, anxiety, or sadness as a direct threat to his masculinity, or simply just as a sign of weakness. And because he lacks the emotional vocabulary to decode what he's actually experiencing, whether that's deep loneliness or severe academic shame, well, he does the only thing he knows how to do. He turns inward. He isolates himself in his bedroom, pulls away from his family and his peers, and because he is trapped in that state of chronic psychological discomfort, he turns to pornography as a maladaptive coping mechanism to numb out and to escape. But now, contrast that with the second path we'll call the emotionally expressive teen. This boy views difficult emotions differently. To him, anxiety or frustration aren't signs of weakness. They're just temporary signals to be understood. because he has been taught how to identify the specific root of his distress. He can tell the difference between feeling angry and just feeling lonely. Instead of turning inward and hiding, he reaches outward. He utilizes communication to process his experiences with his parents or trusted mentors. And because he can move through his feelings using healthy communication, well, he has zero need to use a screen as an artificial emotional regulator. And look at the difference between those two paths. Teens who develop emotional literacy, so in other words, the capacity to accurately identify, label, and express what they are feeling, well, they show a remarkable resilience against developing addictions. So when a young man can look you in the eye and say, I'm feeling incredibly overwhelmed by school right now, or I feel isolated and left out by my friends, something powerful happens biologically. The act of labeling an emotion moves the psychological burden from the reactive, impulsive part of the brain, the amygdala, to the rational processing part, the prefrontal cortex. In fact, research published in Developmental and Psychopathology highlights the high emotional regulation and emotional expression serve as a significant protective factor against substance use and behavioral dependencies in adolescence. So we know emotional literacy is literally a shield, a protection from addiction. Parents, if your son is already caught in the cycle of pornography addiction, well, willpower and restriction alone are rarely enough to break it because the roots of the issue are tied to emotional regulation and neurobiology. Our interventions must be equally comprehensive. So let's look at two proven evidence-based pathways designed specifically to help young men rewire their coping mechanisms. For families looking to establish structure, transparency, and emotional growth right at home, the Recovery Toolbox for Teens is a highly effective evidence-based intervention. This comprehensive resource includes targeted practical tools like the Breaking Free Workbook, the 101 Tips for Quitting Porn Workbook, and the Parent Guide, alongside dedicated step-by-step guide for you as the parent. So rather than just demanding cold turkey abstinence, this toolbox integrates proven cognitive behavioral techniques, specifically teaches teen boys how to identify their emotional triggers, unpack the hidden why behind their turn to the screen, and to develop healthy, tangible habits to replace compulsive behaviors. And most importantly, it bridges the gap between the parent and the child, fostering the exact open communication that's needed to build that life-saving emotional literacy right at your kitchen table. However, sometimes the addictive cycle is so deeply entrenched or accompanied by severe isolation and technology dependence that simply cannot be disrupted within the home environment. And in these acute cases, Star Guides Wilderness Therapy provides a premier, clinically sophisticated intervention. Operating in the high desert of southern Utah, Star Guides is a specialized outdoor behavioral health care program. It's designed explicitly for adolescent males ages 13 to 17 that are struggling with compulsive sexual and technology behaviors. By removing the digital noise entirely, Star Guides puts these young men in a completely unplugged setting, and guided by licensed trauma-informed clinicians, these boys engage in primitive outdoor living and intensive individual and group therapy. Away from the constant dopamine hits of the internet, they learn the vital life skills like emotional regulation, accountability, and honest communication. And they finally are able to face their internal emotional triggers and navigate that landscape without turning to a screen or the escape. Well, parents, remember, pornography addiction in teen boys is fundamentally a battle over emotional coping. So by helping our sons to move away from internalizing their pain and moving it toward expression, we don't just protect them from an addiction. We actually help them to grow into emotionally resilient, authentic young men. So whether it's opening up that conversation tonight using the Recovery Toolbox for Teens or seeking that transformative, immersive intervention of Star Guides Wilderness Therapy, remember that recovery is entirely possible. Parents, you don't have to walk this path alone, and neither does your son. So if you want to learn more about how experiential treatment models help adolescents face these sensitive issues free of shame, well, check out the links in the description below to watch a helpful overview of the STAR Guides program and explore the recovery toolbox. Well, parents, if this video gave you clarity that you needed today, please hit the like button and subscribe to the Parent Guide. Share this video with a friend. Let's break the silence together, and I'll see you in the next video.